to rock this place.
Welcome to episode 4 of season 3 of the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy. While I'm still celebrating from the outstanding Bills win last week, I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and hoping the Bills will bring us another exciting win this week on Thursday Night Football on Prime, because it's on. But first, I'd like to bring on my wonderful co-host and Mr. Positivity himself, Joe Dalio. So, without any further ado, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
It is doing great. Oh, I love that introduction, by the way. Thank you so much, Mr. Positivity. You don't know what a compliment that is, so thank you very much for that. Great to be here, as you said, after a wonderful Bills victory here, a dominant Bills victory that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. Certainly great to be on here. And not only for the Bills, some great games, I think, Jamie, but, a great NFL season so far. It's an NFL, it's an amazing NFL season when twice in 2 weeks you hear a game described as, oh my goodness, that could be the game of the year. Now, of course, week 1, we know what game that was, right? That was the Ravens-Bills game that we had. And, although this game is not on our slate to talk about this week here, people are talking about that Giants-Cowboys game that we had in week 2. And I heard a few people and a few different radio shows say, wow, I definitely game of the year so far. So we've been in the season for 2 weeks here, and we've already had 2 games like that. So incredible action so far. And we got a lot of great things to talk about here this week.
Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about, and that's you know what that's called, Joe? It's called rule changes, like we said backstage, with the kickoff rule allowing more returns and better field position for the offenses, and parity. There's a lot of parity, I think, this year in the league. And and like I said, there's been a few blowouts, but like I said, I feel like at least most of the teams, whether they've been 1-1, 2-0, or 0-2, they've been battle tested the first 2 weeks. You can clearly see that.
Right. I mean, I think minus maybe 2 or 3 teams, like you said, there's a ton of parity, and the NFL prides itself on that. Of course, that's what they aim for. As an NFL fan, that's what I want to see is, the fact that pretty much any team could beat any team on a given day. And yes, we got some 2-0 and 0-2 teams so far, but I don't think there's that large of a gap between, the really good teams and, what we would call maybe the mediocre teams. So
that used to not always be the case, but.
Right. And it goes in cycles, but I definitely think this is going to be one of those years. I mean, it's only week 2, but I think it's, if this short sample is an indication, I think we're in for a lot of competitive games. And as you said, backstage, even, this past week and week 1, there were some really competitive games here.
I mean, look at, I'll give you an example. Look at the Saints. Everybody thought that they were just going to be tanking, but even their first 2 losses were only by single digits or 1 possession.
Yeah, they played hard, against the 49ers there. It's, being at home and everything. So, yeah, you got to give them credit. I still think they're going to be probably the worst team in the league. But, certainly it's a rebuilding time, and Haas, we appreciate you reposting the stream here. Very much appreciated. Sorry you're doing that as we're bad-mouthing the Saints here, but we are good-mouthing them too, because again, they are playing competitively, and if they can continue to do that, they'll take steps going forward.
Exactly. Mhm. And so anyway, Joe, are you ready to begin with the Thursday night football game on Prime? It's on.
It's on, and it was on. Yes, I am definitely ready to talk about
Between
that.
the Washington Commanders, or as a certain president calls them, the Washington whatevers, taking on the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. Anyway, we're going to start off. The Packers open up the scoring as Romeo, where art thou, Romeo Dobbs, caught a 5-yard touchdown pass from Jordan. Normally it's a Sunday kind of love, but it was a Thursday kind of love in this case, bringing the score to 7-0 Green Bay. To begin the second quarter, Josh Jacobs ran it in for a 2-yard touchdown to bring the score to 14-0. Washington ended the half with a Matt Gay 51 field goal of 51 yards. Let's get it on, bringing the score to 14-3 Green Bay. The lone score of the third quarter came from a Brandon McManus field goal of the 22 yards, bringing the score to 17-3 Packers. In the beginning of the fourth quarter, the Commanders finally saw the end zone as Zach Ertz, had to say that slowly, scored a 20-yard touchdown pass from Jaden Daniels, bringing the score to 17-10 Packers. Jaden Daniels, we didn't know him. He had an injury in that game, and I think that might affect his playing for week 3. But they haven't said exactly yet. We can't confirm if he is going to play yet or not because we don't have the sources. But we'll figure it out. With 8:57 left in the fourth quarter, Tucker, Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, caught an 8-yard touchdown pass from Love, bringing the score to 24-10. Green Bay put the game away as McManus hit a 56-yard field goal to bring the score to 27-10. Washington then had a last-ditch attempt with 2:56 left as Deebo Samuel caught a 10-yard pass, and Luke McCaffrey, not Christian McCaffrey, his little brother, scored the 2-point conversion, but the onside kick failed naturally, bringing the score to 27-18 Green Bay. So, Joe, what did you think about Washington's last-ditch effort to come back only to fail on the onside kick against a team that they're saying that the Packers could be a wagon or a juggernaut this year, but they still gave them a tough game?
Yeah, and it's just one of those games I just felt like and here's an idea for a team name for that team from Washington. I have an excellent team name. Ready? I don't know if anybody's heard of this one before. Why don't we just call them the Redskins? Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I still call them. Hey, I'm just throwing it out there. Great idea. Maybe people have heard of it. It was just one of those things, though, as I'm watching this, I knew the Redskins were not going to come back in this game. And that's not a knock on them. That's just a compliment to how well the Packers are playing. And you want to talk about a team showing that they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Now, again, it's easy to overreact after 2 games. Now, both these games also were at Lambeau. So, the Packers having that Lambeau advantage there. So again, small sample size and both at home, but something you got to look at here is the quality of these opponents for the Packers. I mean, it's not like they beat the Saints and the Panthers here. They're playing solid teams. They beat the Lions, and if you had any doubts about the Lions, look at what they did over the weekend. So I just think, I knew that Washington was not coming back in this game. Again, nothing negative towards them, but just the Packers defense has played so well against these quality opponents in the first couple of weeks. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. And, you were talking about love. Now, the Sunday kind of love and the Thursday kind of love. I got one here. Now, since Jordan Love is in such a groove, I think it was more of a groovy kind of love, right? Can we say that? But I'm just, going, following your example there of your excellent puns or leads or whatever you want to call them. So I got to keep up with you, Jamie, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, talking about the Packers, I mean, talking about Jordan Love, 292 yards and a couple of touchdowns. He played great. But really, you look at that Packers defense, and they just completely shut down, two quality opponents. Edgar and Cooper, again, he was in on 12 tackles in week 1 and was in on another 10 this week. So you want to talk about a tackling machine there. Now, it's not like Washington played poorly. Jaden Daniels had 200 yards passing and a couple of touchdowns as well. So really, Washington gave it a valiant effort here. But it was just the Packers were too good. And they've been too good now 2 weeks in a row. So it'll be interesting to see what happens outside of Wisconsin here. But certainly, I think the Packers have really demonstrated that they're a bona fide Super Bowl contender here.
And I guess, Joe, you could take the team out of Wisconsin, but you can't get the people to stop talking about the team in Wisconsin.
That's cool. And I'm not even going to say that's a cheesy take. I mean, that's really good. And I totally take that. So, yeah, you're right about that.
Anyway, Joe, do you think that with Jordan Love and the offense and the defense are for real this year in the NFL, Green Bay?
Totally. Yes. I mean, we thought we knew they were going to be a good team anyway. I mean, I still picked the Lions to win the division. And again, I stick by my predictions. But I mean, certainly I think the Packers are making a greater case so far, obviously beating the Lions in week 1. But this team's definitely for real. And like I said, a bona fide Super Bowl contender, whether they win the division or not.
Mm-hmm.
You agree with that? You think they're a Super Bowl contender as well?
Yeah, I think after the first 2, I think so. Now again, it's only 2 weeks, but they've definitely shown it. I think trading for Micah Parsons was great for them and getting him, to get this defense gelling. Now we'll see what happens when teams start running the ball on them. That's
right.
The only that's how you actually beat a great pass rusher like Micah Parsons, because remember we did that to the Cowboys, Joe, to the game I went to. We just ran in on him with James Cook, and that's what teams are going to start doing if you run the ball in the Packers. That's how you neutralize a great pass rush, but it hasn't happened yet. So until it happens.
Right. And I was going to say too, that's a great point. However, I think they've proven themselves because, what team has the best 1-2 running back combination probably in the NFL, right? The Detroit Lions, between Gibbs and Montgomery. And they did absolutely nothing against that Packers defense. So, a valid point that you make, but I mean, the Packers passed the test week 1, that's for sure.
They did. Mm-hmm. And remember, folks, when you're choosing your fantasy quarterback, remember, just like the NFL wants you to do, choose love.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, now, Joe, let's turn our attention to our game of the week. The Buffalo Bills in East Rutherford, New Jersey, taking on the New Jersey Jets at 1:00 p.m. at MetLife Stadium. The host of Super Bowl 48 in 2014. Anyway, with Josh Allen making his 120th start in the NFL,
wow.
He handed it off to James Cook for a 7-minute, 29-second drive. So basically a 7.5-minute opening drive for a 1-yard touchdown run, bringing the score to 7-0 Buffalo. There's Joseph's water there. Anyway, with 5:04 left in the first quarter, Matt Prater kicked a 28-yard field goal, increasing the Bills' lead to 10-0. With 1:25 left in the first quarter, Allen left the game with a nose injury, and Mitchell Trubisky came into the game. And Dub was ready because he threw a strike for a first down, which was a great throw. So kudos to Mitch for being ready and having to go into the game that quickly with no preparation. Allen being on the scene with a nose, but Allen was okay. So All is good. With 125, with 13:55 left in the second quarter, Prater kicked his second field goal of the game, this time for 52 yards, bringing the score to 13-0. Now, with Allen back after icing his nose, Cook rushed 44 yards, juked out a man, and took it to the house with 8:45 left in the second quarter, increasing the Bills' lead to 20-0. The Jets finally got on the board with a Nick Folk. Oh my God, his name's still. Bills fans are like, oh my God, he's still haunting us, right?
Yeah.
With a 51-yard field goal, but this one wasn't a game-winning kick on Monday night this time. And he was with a team called the Cowboys then. Now he's with the Jets with 4:15 remaining in the half to bring the score to 20-3 Bills. To start the third quarter, Prater kicked his third field goal of the day, this time from 33 yards, bringing the score to Bills 23, Jets 3. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, the Bills took 6 minutes, 56 seconds off the clock on an Elijah Moore 5-yard touchdown play, increasing their lead to 13-3. With Fields being evaluated for a concussion, Tyrod Taylor, former ex-Bill, threw a 5-yard touchdown pass to Jeremy Rucker for his first career touchdown to close out the score 30-10 Buffalo. So, Joe, do you think that the defense finally stepped up this weekend?
Yes, I do. And you kind of had the feeling that they were going to. The defense, we knew they were going to struggle a little bit, and certainly the Ravens, caused that. But we also knew that the Bills' defense is much better than what it showed for week one. And, no offense to the Jets, but their offense is not the Baltimore Ravens offense. So you almost knew that this Bills defense was definitely going to show up and, do a much better showing. And again, I predicted still, I think I predicted that the score would be like 30-23 here. So I thought the Jets would score some points on the Bills, but at the same time, I definitely thought we'd see the real Bills defense here. And we definitely did. And again, I didn't give them enough credit, I guess, because, the Jets didn't, get there. But definitely a nice comeback performance for the Bills defense.
And like I said, I still think the Jets will get there. I think Aaron Glenn's starting to build he's going to build a nice culture with the Jets. And if you think about it, McDermott was right. He said a lot of what they're doing in their first year is kind of like what we did in our first year. And if that holds true for the Jets, look out for the Jets with Aaron Glenn, because look at what the Bills have been able to do since building that culture in 2017. The Jets are just starting right now, but obviously they're not ready to play a team like the Bills yet. But Aaron Glenn's going to get under them. He's going to get on his guys and make them watch film on that game, and they'll learn from it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of coach he is. He's very attention to detail. And, the Jets showed that they're still very undisciplined. However, as you say, I think Glenn is the perfect guy. And even the announcers for that game were sharing that. They said, if there was the right guy for that Jets head coaching job right now, anyway, I think it would definitely be Aaron Glenn. I think he's the right guy, and he's definitely going to get that ship pointed in the right direction.
You could tell the minute he got rid of Aaron Rodgers, you could say, okay, you could see the Jets are going to be playing around with intolerance and mediocrity and accepting anything less than winning when Aaron Glenn made that move.
Exactly.
So, anyway, what do you think the Jets have to do to bounce back next week, Joe, against the Tampa Bay Bucks?
Well, I mean, they need to regroup, like you said. Watch the film. Where did we go wrong? And there was quite a few places where they went wrong. And you said backstage that you didn't feel like Tyrod Taylor for the Jets was that much of a downgrade, if any, really, from Justin Fields. And I don't think you meant that as a knock against Justin Fields, but I think Tyrod Taylor is a good quarterback for them because I always said this when he was the quarterback of the Bills. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to win games for you, but he's the type of quarterback that is, the mosquito flies across here in camera. Tyrod Taylor is the type of quarterback that's not going to lose the game for you. So, a good guy for the Jets to have in because, again, they're trying to minimize the mistakes. They're trying to, get some structure here and avoid mistakes that cost games. And Tyrod Taylor, as he was in Buffalo, is the type that's not going to make those game-losing mistakes. Again, they're going to have to do a lot, and the guys around him are going to have to do a lot because, again, he's not Josh Allen that can will his team to victory, but he's not going to make the mistakes that cost victory too. So that's the key. Don't make those mistakes. Now
he still can make yeah, but don't also think he's a statue in the pocket either. He's a dual threat guy, and he can make poor flat throws, and he throws a nice deep ball too.
Right. Now the Jets have a little bit of an advantage in this game because Tampa's coming off the Monday night game. So, the game's in Tampa, I believe, because the Jets have played their first two games at home and lost them both. So the game is in Tampa, but don't count the Jets out of this one. I give them a decent chance to win this game. And again, this is how the NFL works, right? The Jets are 0-2. Tampa's 2-0, I believe, right? Yes. And, Tampa looked good. I mean, they could have lost that game last night, but they came back and ended up, winning it. And again, they're a solid team, and Baker Mayfield's doing great so far. But this is the type of game that a team like the Jets wins based on the way the NFL always works. Jets are 0-2, Bucks are 2-0. Tampa is going to be a playoff team. Jets probably are not. And, they just the Jets just lost their starting quarterback for a little bit. Right? This is, to me, anytime there's an obvious situation like this in the NFL, that's a point where you would go with the Jets. So I think the Jets have a very good chance of winning this game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what do you think that the Bills need to do to get themselves ready for a quick turnaround, as it's a short week, Thursday night against Miami? Now they're going to have only a day starting tomorrow to prepare.
Right. But you got to look at it the other way too. So do the Dolphins. And when you have, a situation like this where both teams are on a short week, it's kind of like, a team coming off a bye or something like that. The better coached, better talented team usually prevails here. So who nothing, I don't mean this as a knock against McDaniel of the Dolphins, but who do I take in a matchup like this? McDermott or McDaniel? And I think we both know the answer would be McDermott. So, I think this short layoff gives the Bills an advantage. And, they have to focus. Don't take this Dolphins team for granted because we were just talking about this. The Bills are 2-0, Super Bowl contender. Dolphins 0-2, spiraling downward. Easy win for the Bills, right? Well, the Bills can't look at it that way. They still have to, get ready for this game, prepare for this game, try to kick a team while it's down. It's a division rival that's down. Keep them down and just make sure that they pay attention to detail and, play well defensively, keep that offensive momentum going. And I think those are the keys.
That's true, Joe. So, let's move on from that. Moving on to the 4:00 showdown, the Super Bowl 59 rematch with the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at GAH Field at Arrowhead. So the Eagles scored the only touchdown of the first quarter as Saquon Barkley ran in it for 13 yards to give the Eagles the lead 7-0 after one quarter of play. With 11:42 left in the half, Harrison Butker kicked a 56-yard field goal, cutting the Eagles' lead to 7-3. The Chiefs would then take their first lead of the game as Patrick Mahomes scored on a 13-yard touchdown, bringing the score to 10-7 Chiefs. Jake Elliott kicked the 58-yard field goal as time expired at the half to tie the score at 10-all. The Eagles opened the third quarter with Elliott kicking his second field goal, this time for 51 yards, to increase the Eagles' score to 13-10. With 7:48 left in the fourth, Jalen Hurts so good scored with the tush push play. Don't ban the tush push, NFL, because it's a great play. Figure out how to stop it, and the Chiefs didn't, and the score was 20-10 Eagles. Kansas City would make a last-ditch effort as Tyquan Thornton caught a 29-yard pass, bringing the score to 20-17, where the game would end. So, Joe, what did you think of the sequel to the Super Bowl rematch in a hard-fought, old-school kind of physical game? It had a little bit more of an old-school feel to it.
It did, and it had a theme that was similar to the Bills game here. Now, I meant to say this when we were talking about the Bills game, so if you can allow me to go back a little bit here, I'm going to do that.
Please do.
Josh Allen did not play his best game, okay? Now, we saw what he did in week one. Now, partially, he didn't play his best game because, honestly, he got the crap kicked out of him in this game. You know, he got the nose injury. Now, was it officially diagnosed that he had a broken nose? I meant to look at that, and I didn't get a chance.
No, it wasn't broken.
It wasn't broken. Okay, because it certainly looked like it was. But I guess that's good to know that it wasn't. But, I meant to say that when we were going over the Bills game. Josh Allen did not play his best game. Not that he played badly by any means. But he only had 148 yards passing, 59 yards rushing. That game was all about James Cook with 132 yards and 2 touchdowns and, a great supporting cast, right? 8 different pass catchers in that game as, the Bills, everybody eats philosophy here, but you now take that to the same theme for this Eagles game. Now, I had a feeling that the Eagles were going to win this game. I said that, and this prediction is not looking too good right now. But while everybody was dumping on the Chiefs, saying they're done and that's it, the Chiefs' reign is going to end, I was one of those, and not the only one for sure, saying no, the Chiefs are still going to win this division. All right. So listen, when I make predictions, I stick with them. All right. In baseball, I predicted the Atlanta Braves this year to make the World Series. I'm going to stick with that prediction, even though I think they're mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. All right. I'll admit when I'm wrong. I mean, I'm right, a decent amount of times too. But I definitely admit when I'm wrong. And, that one obviously was wrong. And I said the Chiefs were going to win the division, and I'm going to stick by that. Although I'm going to admit right now, even though it's only 2 games, I'm not so sure about that. I think the people not only on our network when we talked about it, but other NFL networks here, saying that the luck and luster of the Chiefs might be fading. I don't know. After 2 games, I'm starting to think that might be the case. But anyway, Jalen Hurts also did not play an amazing game here. I thought he was subpar in this game. But the rest of the team, the supporting cast, as we were talking about here, they carried him. And so, that's why, again, when a team can win and their best player not play their best game, I think that's a testament to the team. So, the Bills won with Josh Allen not playing his best game. I mean, the Bills were dominant. The Eagles won this game without Jalen Hurts playing his best game. So I think that's a major testament to them.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think you could clearly see now, Joe, that teams that are beating the Chiefs made, like I said, Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, but you could see it even in the Super Bowl where they lost. you could see where the tides were going to, in the future, we're going to start turning because the Eagles have a much better supporting cast around Jalen Hurts, whereas other than Travis Kelce, Mahomes doesn't really have anything like he used to have, you know, I mean.
And I
because
think
if you think about it, Jalen Hurts, what does he have? A Hall of Fame offensive line probably when it's all said and done. AJ Smith or AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, the wide receiver, Saquon and running back. What does Patrick Mahomes have? Not as good Travis Kelce, a very, you know, a very mushy, you know, situation with the offensive line and his running backs. Like I said, Isaiah Pacheco was good, but still you can't really run without a line. And his receivers, other than Kelce, are still a question mark. And you could see that the team with the better supporting cast is starting to win because I don't think the Chiefs can continue to do what they can do with the supporting cast system. It's not like New England, where New England always had an offensive line every year. Brady never had that issue. Mahomes, it doesn't matter how great of a quarterback you are. If you don't have the offensive line, it's going to make them look mid, and that's what's happened.
Yeah, that's and you're right. I mean, because the again, I call it the luck and luster of the Chiefs. Now, losing that Super Bowl was the start of it, but I said this last week. Week 1, that loss to the Chargers was a real indication that luster was fading because, again, just the way that game was going, how many times in the last 2 or 3 years have the Chiefs won games like that? You know, the Chargers were up and the Chiefs were coming back. And I was like, again, we've seen this movie 1,000 times. We all know what's going to happen. And then they played us the alternate ending. And so that's when they lost that game in week 1, the Chiefs. I was like, things might be on the downturn for them. And again, I think this may turn out to be a transition year because of that line, the offensive line that you mentioned, and because of the lack of supporting characters. Now, the Chiefs, as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, I think they're always going to be in the mix. Even with a season like this, you know that even if things don't go well, and some people are saying the Chiefs don't even make the playoffs this year, I'm not ready to say that yet, but I will say that it's a lot more possible than I thought it was. And even if that happens, you know their management is good and they're going to go out and make the right moves and get those offensive linemen and get that supporting cast where, you know, the Chiefs could easily be right back in the mix, you know, in future seasons. But again, let's not count them out this year yet, because certainly it's 2 games and they're capable. But, you know, again, the Eagles, on the other hand, have such depth and such an amazing supporting cast that when a guy like Jalen Hurts doesn't have his best game, they could still, you know, win a game like this in a hostile environment.
Yeah, exactly. But Joe, I even think those 2 Super Bowls, but I even think like after they lost to the Bengals with Tyreek Hill there, you could see that even though they won those 2 Super Bowls, the luck was going to eventually run out because they didn't have him to go to. I mean, even those 2 Super Bowls where they won, you could see they didn't even look that great. And even last year where they won all those close games, they really didn't look that great either. And now it's all starting to compound, I think. Well,
and they lost a couple of close games. So, you know, that's an indication that the tide could be turning as well. You know, they have a great remedy here. You know, not that the Giants are an easy out, as we saw, you know, they could have easily won against the Cowboys the other day. But I think for a team like the Chiefs, you know, to now have these tough games and then to go play a team like the Giants, you know, they're going to still have to be up for it, and it's going to be a tough game. But I think, again, without knocking the Giants down, I think that's exactly what the Chiefs need.
Yeah, but like I said, who trained Dable for games like this? Our guy.
There you go. You're right. And you know, again, I said it last week. He knows his job's on the line, so he's going to be swinging in all different directions, trying to, to pull things. So, again, he's not going down with a fight. And again, he knows the Chiefs probably, better than most NFC coaches.
Right. So, the Chiefs still got to think they're 0-2, but they still can't think they're going to have an easy game against the Giants. It's just that type of season this year.
Yeah, they're not going to have an easy game against the Giants, but it's still, I think to have a little bit of an easier opponent might help them this week.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Joe, does this show that the tush push does indeed work, and that even though you think the league may eventually ban it, I don't think they will, but if they do, how do you enforce that? So do you think the league should ban it? That's my question. I don't think they can enforce, like what are you going to do if they run it? Do you give them an illegal tush push penalty? Like, that would be silly. You know what I mean?
Right. When we had Sal Capaccio on here a couple of years ago, he said, it's the penalty is aiding the runner. All right. Now, to answer your question, will they ban it? That I don't know. Should they ban it? I say they absolutely should not. All right. Mm-hmm. I'm all in favor of it. Again, if you don't want the Eagles to succeed with that play every time, here's what you got to do. You have to figure out a way to stop it.
And guess what? I think, can I tell you something? The Cowboys trading Micah Parsons for Kenny Clark, I think was supposed to be a move for that, because you need a big nose tackle like that in the middle to try to, and even though they didn't stop it, I think Dallas had the right approach making that move. And what did you see Buffalo do in the draft? Get big run stuffers like TJ Sanders and what you would call it, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker. When that Oliver comes back again, I think we're playing the Eagles. That's those are the type of moves you make. And same thing with the Browns. Even though they struggled against Derrick Henry, they have statistically one of the best run defenses under Jim Schwartz. So there you go.
So again, if you don't want them to succeed with that play, then figure out a way to stop it. That simple as that.
I think you saw a lot of teams make moves or draft that way.
I keep saying, if you don't want to see the same team winning all the time, figure out a way to stop them from winning. That's what you have to do. Now, the best teams like the Patriots dynasty and the Chiefs for a while, teams were trying, obviously, to figure out how to beat them. They just couldn't. That's how good those teams were. So, and I could say this all I want, all right, figure out a way to stop it. The problem is the Eagles do it so well. The teams, I'm sure teams are trying to stop it. They're trying to figure it out. They just can't. But don't penalize the team that's doing it so well that, by taking it away.
See, Joe, you know how Sal Capaccio was talking about aiding the runner? See, here's the thing. You know why I don't think they can force that? Because that was back in the day where, like I said, it was. I think with the way like the NFL has the rules now and how it's more skewed towards the offense, I don't think they can enforce leveraging the runner, because that was back when, like I said, the Bills had the no huddle, but like I said, it wasn't as much of an offensive game. Yeah, and I don't think Goodell wants to, ban plays that are going to prevent high scoring games. And I think banning that play of leveraging the runner would take away from that, especially when you have the kickoff rule designed for more offense,
Yep. I completely agree with everything you just said. So I definitely don't think they should take it away. And I don't think they will.
Exactly. I know they said at the next NFL meeting they could convince two teams, but who knows? What if those two teams that voted before changed their vote, and then it would still be on,
Yeah.
Because do you notice, though, Joe, the Eagles are kind of influencing, like I said, do you notice you see other teams are running the QB sneak now? Like the Giants did it, the Cowboys are doing it, the Vikings did it a couple times with McCarthy. So you're seeing teams joining them in terms of like running their own version of the QB sneak.
I do. And that's what happens in every sport. It's a copycat league. Some guy named Curry was making threes all the time. So now what does everybody do? They shoot threes, right?
But what about
the NHL had the neutral zone crap, I called it, right? The neutral zone trap. A team won the Stanley Cup that way, and all of a sudden the sport almost got ruined because everybody was following that, and you'd have 1-0 hockey games with 10 shots on goal per the whole game, and it almost ruined the league.
And more enforcers and fights too.
Right. So, and now, luckily a sport like the NHL, for example, has gone the opposite direction. It's a fast skating team. Those fast skating teams are the ones that are winning now. And so now it's a copycat and doing that. In baseball, the best teams have the guys that hit 50 home runs and power the ball. And, now everybody wants to have home run hitters.
Pitchers that have a bunch of Randy Johnsons and Nolan Ryans and less Greg Maddoxes.
Exactly. So every sport, the same thing happens. Whatever works,
it never used to
is
be
what
like
people are going to do. What's that?
No, I was going to say, Joe, guess what? You know who actually kind of started the whole, who I think actually started the whole game the way it's played now?
Who?
How about the team you called the joke of the league, the Sabres? Because do you remember coming out of the lockout when everybody was playing the clutching and grabbing? The Sabres said, we're going to get a bunch of Danny Brières and Chris Drury's, a bunch of guys who can skate like mothers, and we're just going to use our speed and skill to just be faster than all these other teams. And that's why they were so good coming out of the lockout with Lindy. And that's why they went to the Eastern Conference Finals twice. The Sabres, you could argue they kind of changed the way the game's played now originally back then, even though they're struggling now, but they were one of the guys, they were the guinea pigs to start it though.
Very true. That's why, like you said, it's why they were one of the more successful teams at that time.
Yeah. Anyway, but so now, Joe, turning our attention to the Sunday night matchup between the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Minnesota Vikings with their zesty cheerleaders at US Bank Stadium. Anywho, the Falcons struck first as Parker Romo from the USFL San Antonio Brahmas hit a 38-yard field goal to bring the score to 3-0 Atlanta. Romo then hit a second field goal from 29 yards, bringing the score to 6-0 Atlanta. In the beginning of the second quarter, Will Reichert kicked a 33-yard field goal, bringing the score to 6-3 Atlanta. Romo hit his third field goal for 33 yards with 25 seconds left in the half, increases Atlanta's score to 9-3. Reichert kicked his second field goal, 9-3, which is a driving position on the steering wheel, by the way. Anyway, for all you student drivers out there. Anyway, Reichert kicked his second field goal for 51 yards as time expired in the half, and the Falcons led 9-6. Atlanta would get the only score in the third quarter with a Romo field goal of 12 yards. Man, how many field goals? This is really an old school game. Is this Pete Gogolets kicking out here? I mean, what's going on?
No, it's Tony Romo. I mean, some guy named Romo.
This is like an old AFL game. It's just a bunch of guys kicking field goals to bring the score to 12-6. The Falcons opened up the fourth quarter with another Romo field goal, this time for 54 yards to bring the score to 15-6. Finally, the Falcons scored a touchdown to close out the game as Tyler Algiera had a 5-yard touchdown to cap out their lead 22-6. So, Joe, what do you think about this being an old school type of game for the Falcons? Another one of these rare blowout wins in the modern day game where the Falcons, I don't know if you saw, they ran it down Minnesota's throats to try to stop Brian Flores from blitzing a lot. And even though they got too many field goals, they finally scored with a touchdown. They ran the ball well with Bijan Robinson, and it looks like this Falcons defense that we've been waiting to see with Raheem with Raheem Morris. It looks like it's finally coming to fruition in year 2. What do you think? Do the Falcons finally have a D?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by this result, to be honest with you. I thought that this was a good matchup for the Falcons. And, I thought that the Vikings were lucky to win their first game. And, it's ironic. You were talking about the field goal battle because the Falcons, we've seen a few kicker demotions here so far, right? And it's only week 2, right? Jake Moody of the Santa Clara 49ers, he got cut, after missing another big field goal there. And, the Falcons kicker, Koo, I think his name is.
Yeah.
And he got demoted. Now, he didn't get cut by the Falcons, but they brought, this other guy, Romo, in here. And
from the UFL.
From there. Yeah, that's right. And so he takes over, and then he kicks, what'd you say, 3 field goals in this game or 4?
That's where all the best kickers from the UFL. Remember that, Joe.
There you go. So very interesting to see what happens with this kicking situation in the ATL. But here's the question that I would ask Viking fans. All right, J.J. McCarthy has played 8 quarters, and 7 of them have been bad. In fact, this game, he had a 37.5 quarterback rating, and he had 3 fumbles. Dude, hold on to the football, please. All right, now he only lost 1 of those fumbles, but 3 fumbles here. Now, I'd like to know if there's any Vikings fans watching. Are you concerned about that? Now, I'm a neutral observer, and I'll ask you the same question, but I'll share my opinion here. As a neutral observer, would I be worried about J.J. McCarthy? My answer is not really. I think this may be an indication that it's going to take him a little bit longer to develop than maybe the Vikings thought. But I've seen, a little bit anyway. And it seems like he's got a natural talent at the position. And I still think he could be a really good quarterback in this league. I just think that maybe for this season might be kind of a developmental season for him and the Vikings, as I really thought it was going to be anyway. I think I picked the Vikings for last place in that division, just because of the quality of it. Not that the Vikings are a bad team, but I think it's just going to take J.J. McCarthy a little bit more time and a little bit more game experience to get going. But I still think he's going to be a very good quarterback in this league. What about you? Would you be concerned if you're a Vikings fan?
No, I mean, I think not at all. I think he's young. He's got God on his shoulders. I think he's a nice, humble man. He's young. He's confident. I think he's a natural born leader and a winner, and you can't teach that in a young quarterback to be a natural born leader. And he's got that, he's got the moxie, the look of a quarterback. And I think he's got the it factor too, that you can't teach for a young quarterback.
That's a very good point. And I agree with that. And that's why I think he's going to be a solid quarterback here and a solid team leader, like you said.
And the fact that he just, he became a dad, I think that's motivating him too,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, Joe, what did you think about most of these games being competitive and somewhat, middle to high scoring, but this one and these few rare ones other than the Bills Jets, this one, not so much. It was kind of a one-way game, and it was the Falcons, even though they should have probably scored more touchdowns than field goals.
Yeah, that's true. And just, you're going to get some of these types of games here in these situations. But yeah, again, parity in the NFL. That's what they're aiming for. That's what we want to see. And so far, so good after 2 weeks. So, again, there's going to be games like this, when baseball was in their home run hitting stage and games were, 9-8 all the time. you'd still get that occasional 3-2 game, right? So same thing's going to happen in the NFL. We're going to see some scoring. We're going to see some very high scoring games, but we're still going to get some of these, lower scoring, old fashioned type football, like you said, and some hard nosed, low scoring games.
And it's harder to do it, but you're still going to see it.
You'll still see it. Now, again, it's more rare, but and again, some fans like that. I'm the type of NFL fan. I enjoy the high flying offensive type of game, but I certainly don't mind seeing
which it usually isn't. That's why, like I said, they brought in more viewers. The ratings have gone up because of that. They're trying to bring in more viewers with the way they're making the game now, and it's been working.
Yeah, you would have think they planned it that way.
What'd you say?
I said you would have thought they planned it that way.
Right. Anyway, now to our last matchup of the week, Monday Night Football. With the Tampa Bay Bucks taking on the Houston Texans at NRG Stadium in downtown Houston. Anyway, Houston opened up the scoring with a 29-yard touchdown pass from C.J. Stroud to Nico Collins to bring the score to 7-0 Texans. The Buccaneers would respond with a Ryan Miller, not the former Sabres all-star goalie, but the tight end Ryan Miller. 29-yard touchdown pass from Baker Mayfield, knotting the score at 7-0. With 3:25 left in the first quarter, Kai Fairbairn kicked a 35-yard field goal to end the first quarter, 10-7 Texans, excuse me. With 9:41 left in the second quarter, Inika Peak Agbuka, as Chris Berman says on Fastest 3 Minutes, caught a 15-yard touchdown pass from Mayfield that gave Tampa their first lead at halftime, 14-10. With no scoring in the third quarter, down by 4, Fairbairn kicked his second field goal for 53 yards to bring the score 14-13 Tampa. Nick Chubb ran it in for a 25-yard touchdown score, but the 2-point conversion try failed, bringing the score to 19-14 Houston. With 6 seconds left in the game, Rashad White ran it in for a game-winning 2-yard touchdown, but the 2-point conversion try failed, and the final score resulted in 20-19, Tampa winning the contest. Joe, 20. Do we know another team that we like that lost 20-19 in a one of the biggest games of the year?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
But anyway, so Joe, what did you think about that incredible finish?
Well, I didn't see it. In fact, that's why this game was so frustrating for me. All right. Now, personal note here, generally a good game. Now, I forgot this game was on at 7:00 Eastern time because there was another game that was following it. So I put this game on probably closer to 8:00, and I'm seeing about how, wow, the first 4 possessions of this game were all scoring plays. And then I start watching this game, and then the next 6 possessions are all punts. So I was like, what the heck is going on? I missed all the action. And now I'm seeing like just nothing happening here. Boring game. Like you said, nothing going on in the third quarter. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to see anything this game. So I go to bed in the fourth quarter. Now, I'll admit I had a few pennies on the Buccaneers in this game. And they were 2.5-point underdogs that I had them for. So I'm like, all right, I'm in pretty good shape here. And then even when the Texans are driving down, I was like, okay, let them kick a field goal. Who cares? Because then the Texans will win by 1, and I'll still cover my 2.5. And then I look and I see that, Chubb made the 25-yard run, and now they're up by like 4. I was like, are you kidding me? It's like they've been winning the whole game. It was just one of those games I knew they were going to choke away, and they did. But then I see, I check it again a few minutes later thinking, okay, I lost it. And boom, Tampa comes back and they end up winning the game. So kudos to them. So again, I guess I was the bad luck charm because as long as I watched this game, it was dull and lifeless. As soon as I didn't have it on or shut the game off, all the fireworks were going off. So A little frustrating for me, but good performances by both. I mean, both quarterbacks had over 200 yards passing, and one had a 97 quarterback rating, one had a 98. So, they played solid. Again, two, good to very good teams here. Again, I don't talk highly of Houston, but when they play at home, they can beat anybody. And they almost pulled out a game that they didn't deserve to win here, because I thought Tampa dominated this game. But Houston almost pulled it off. So give them credit for that and for coming back. They just couldn't hold on to it at the end. And on the other side, give Tampa credit. They choked away a game at the end that they had complete control of for 3.5 quarters, but they still come back and find a way to win this game and go 2-0.
That's true. So, Joe, what did you think about Baker Mayfield with yet another comeback win since joining the Buccaneers?
Love to see it. I mean, this guy, I thought he got a bad deal in Cleveland. Again, first round draft choice, same year as Josh Allen and some of that group there. But he's just one of those guys I love to see do well, as long as it's not a team that's going against ours. I love to see him succeed. I heard somebody say on the radio today that this guy is like an MVP candidate, and who knows, I don't think he's at that level, but it seems like this guy is learning more and more every week how to win games and how to, again, sometimes maybe win games, that they shouldn't have. And again, they should have won this game because they had complete control over it for so long. But then it was taken away out of their hands. And just like Mayfield is like, nope, I'll take that back. Thank you. This is our game and we're going to win it. And that's that.
See, Josh Allen, I mean, Baker Mayfield, if you want to talk about a guy who I think resembles Josh Allen, but may not, do the things that he does.
Mm-hmm.
It's Baker Mayfield. I think he's a lot like Josh Allen in that he's a fiery, competitive guy. He wants to be good. He plays that reckless abandonment style like Allen. He just plays that reckless. I'm going to go out. I'm going to give contact to the defenders. I'm just going to sling that freaking ball all over the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I find it very ironic that he was drafted ahead of Josh Allen, and there was 3 other quarterbacks drafted ahead of Josh Allen, or 3 quarterbacks total, I think. So ironic that Mayfield was picked ahead of him, which we knew at the time was going to happen. But yeah, you're right. I agree with that, and I didn't really think about that, but I agree. I think he is very similar, to that Josh Allen mold.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I know why Cleveland got rid of him, because even though he was a great quarterback, I think they may have saw at some point that they were going to eventually get burned, because you know how they've taken so many of those guys in the first round and everything, and it just hasn't worked out.
Uh-huh.
Well, the one thing I think they did by getting rid of him is I think they've changed that culture, because I don't think he had Nick Chubb and everything, but they did draft him, right? But I don't think they had the complete team around him yet for them to really be where he wanted to be. So they said, okay, we're going to let you go to Tampa where you have a more complete team. And even though we traded for, Deshaun Watson and gave up all those picks, what we did do is we're not going to take a quarterback in the first round anymore with our picks for a little while. And what I think we're going to do is we're going to try to build around the quarterback. And I think that's what you saw, what they've done in the last 3 drafts, because you got to remember when they could have taken Shador at number 2 and everybody would have said, oh, what the Browns are crazy. They're taking another guy at that level. But they were smart. they traded that pick, right?
Yeah.
So they could take Mason Graham at number 5, who looks like he's going to be they're not going to miss on him. He's going to be a good player. Kind of like how they took Myles Garrett number 1 instead of Mahomes, because at least they know they hit on Myles Garrett and there wasn't a chance that they may have not hit on Mahomes. So they're trying to draft players that they know they're going to hit on, change the culture a little bit, and build around the quarterback. And did you notice they were smart that they took Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round and they took Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round? So they basically said, if one of those guys turns out well, it's like, hey, we got to steal here. And if they don't, well, at least they were 3rd and 5th round picks. They weren't the number 2 overall. Do you get what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's funny that they're shying away from the quarterbacks in the 1st round. So you mean to tell me Tim Couch is not in the Hall of Fame yet? I'm joking, of course.
Tim Couch, you know what? If you actually watched him, he had his moments, but he was kind of set up to fail because he was drafted on an expansion team that basically had, he didn't have any talent.
Nothing
he had
around
no pieces around him either.
But
when Butch Davis took over, he actually started to play well, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Or not well, but, as best as he could with him.
Right. There was other worse ones after him. He was just the only one I could think of in the moment here. So.
Kelly Smith.
Yes. Kelly who?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, well, looks like we come to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you on the social media landscape on Tuesday, September 16th, 2025, the 4th episode of the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room, but the 2nd one where we're talking about another Bills victory and another week of meaningful football?
Yeah, I said in a message earlier, I said, we're going to have a lot of Victory Tuesday podcasts here, I think. Speaking of that, before we go off the air here, I got to ask you, Jamie, what's your score prediction for this Thursday's game?
I think it's going to be it could end up being like last year's game at home where Tyler Bass kicked the game-winning field goal and they won 30-27.
Uh-huh.
You know what? I'm going to say 34-27 Bills.
Ooh, okay. I have it a little further. Now, I think it's going to be a very tight first half. I think the Bills are going to struggle in the first. I think it could be close. Even wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins are winning at halftime. One of those typical slow starting Bills games. I think they pull in the way in the second half. My prediction here is Bills 35, Dolphins 20. So I think it'll be a higher scoring game. I think they pull away at the end. So
you're both having a high scoring game because I think it will be.
Yes, I agree with that. But anyway, you could find me and fearless predictions like that on my ex Twitter handle, Joe Dell Sports there. And open mic sometimes, which would be heading over there shortly.
And then you can find me with fearless free speech takes, just like Joe on mine, at Bills Chat 1 at Bills Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dogkicks and theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. DJ Dogkicks, unbiased journalist, Bills Chat 1, that's my X account. So go follow both of those, please. And don't forget to subscribe to our Driving to the Top YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and hit the bell for notifications. For more content on Driving to the Top Productions, please visit our YouTube page, Twitch stream, Facebook stream, X stream, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, we will be cheering for our Buffalo Bills this Thursday night against the Fish on Prime. It's on. And yes, we agree with Joe and agree that the Washington Commanders should be the Washington Redskins. And to quote our friend Chris Berman, in a game where the Bills finally played well on defense, even though they were playing an inferior but tough opponent like the Jets, not like the Ravens, nobody circles the wagons, especially the defense in week 2 of the NFL versus the New York Jets at MetLife, like the Buffalo Bills. See you next week, folks.
Have a great week.
2 1.